Welcome to Global Insight News, where we dive deep into the world's most pressing geopolitical issues with clarity and insight. Today, we're tackling a seismic development that's rocked the hopes for peace in Ukraine. After the much-hyped Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, Russia has thrown a wrench into the works, publicly denying any agreement on security guarantees for Ukraine. This dramatic reversal has sparked a full-blown diplomatic crisis, casting serious doubt on the prospects for peace. In this video, we'll unpack the key issues, uncover the hidden truths, and explore the far-reaching consequences of this moment. We'll dive into Russia's deceptive tactics, the responses from the United States and Ukraine, the broader implications for the war, and what might lie ahead in this complex and volatile conflict. Buckle up. This is a deep dive, so grab a coffee and let's get started. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on the latest geopolitical developments. Let's set the stage. The Trump-Putin summit in Anchorage was billed as a potential turning point in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, now dragging into its fourth year. President Trump, alongside Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, came out of the talks touting a major breakthrough. They claimed Russia had agreed to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, a critical step toward de-escalation. These statements, widely covered by outlets like CNN and the New York Times, raised hopes that a framework for peace might finally be within reach. But then, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dropped a bombshell. In a press conference on August 21, 2025, reported by Reuters, Lavrov flatly denied any such agreement. He insisted that no Western-backed security guarantees were on the table and that Russia itself would provide the guarantees. This contradictory stance isn't just confusing, it's a deliberate move that undermines trust and exposes Russia's long-standing playbook of bad faith and delay. This isn't a new tactic for Russia. Let's rewind to early 2022, before the invasion escalated. Moscow made it crystal clear that Ukraine's potential NATO membership was a red line. Russia has consistently pushed for a security framework that excludes NATO, effectively giving itself veto power over Ukraine's protection. Lavrov's latest remarks, as reported by NBC News, echo this exact position. He emphasized that Russia must be the central player in any security discussion, a condition that Western powers, including the US and EU, view as a non-starter. Why? Because handing Russia control over Ukraine's security would neutralize any real protection, leaving Kiev vulnerable to future aggression. It's a setup where Russia holds all the cards, and Lavrov's statements suggest Moscow hasn't budged an inch from this stance. This raises a critical question. Was Russia ever serious about the summit's goals, or was this just a diplomatic charade? The confusion doesn't stop there. Adding fuel to the fire, Lavrov also denied that President Putin ever agreed to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky face-to-face. This directly contradicts Trump's claim, widely publicized by The Washington Post on August 20, 2025, that he had personally persuaded Putin to sit down with Zelensky. This discrepancy isn't just a diplomatic embarrassment. It's a signal that Russia may have no intention of engaging in genuine peace talks. The summit, held in Anchorage, was supposed to be a high-stakes opportunity to bridge gaps. Instead, it's left the world questioning Russia's sincerity. As DW reported on August 17th, Putin walked away with a major symbolic win, a high-profile meeting with the US president that broke his diplomatic isolation. Yet on the ground, nothing has changed. Russian forces continue their relentless assaults, with Ukraine's military reporting over 600 drones and 40 missiles launched in a single night on August 20, according to Al Jazeera. This stark contrast between diplomatic fanfare and battlefield reality paints a grim picture. Experts are calling this a diplomatic roller coaster, and it's not hard to see why. Moments of apparent progress, like Trump's optimistic announcements, quickly dissolve into setbacks. Preston Stewart, a geopolitical analyst, described the summit on NBC as a grand maneuver where Russia gained more than it gave. For Putin, simply being seen as a global player alongside Trump was a victory, regardless of the outcome. From Moscow's perspective, the summit was less about peace and more about optics. It allowed Russia to project strength and legitimacy while stalling substantive negotiations. Meanwhile, Ukraine faces the brutal reality of a war that's killed tens of thousands and displaced millions. The Royal United Services Institute, in a report last week, noted that Russia's strategy hinges on prolonging the conflict, betting that Western support for Ukraine will eventually fracture under political and economic pressures. Let's talk about the war itself, because it's anything but straightforward. This conflict defies simple notions of victory or defeat. Russia's objectives are multifaceted and shifting: preventing Ukraine's NATO accession, securing territorial gains in regions like Donbass, and weakening Western unity. Ukraine, on the other hand, is fighting for its very existence as a sovereign nation. Zelensky has repeatedly stated, including in a post on X on August 17, 2025, that any deal compromising Ukraine's territorial integrity is a non-starter, citing the country's constitution, which requires a referendum for territorial changes. Yet, as the Financial Times reported on August 19th, some Ukrainian officials are quietly exploring pragmatic compromises, like ceding occupied territories in exchange for ironclad security guarantees and military support. The catch? Those guarantees must come from the West, not Russia, and they must be enforceable, something Moscow's veto power at the UN makes nearly impossible.
For Ukraine, success isn't just about holding ground. It's about maintaining the international coalition that's kept it afloat. Since 2022, the US, EU, and allies have poured over $100 billion in military and economic aid into Ukraine, according to the Council on Foreign Relations. This support has been a lifeline, enabling Kyiv to resist Russia's advances. But cracks are starting to show. In Europe, leaders like Germany's Olaf Scholz and France's Emmanuel Macron face domestic pressure to prioritize economic issues over foreign aid, as noted in a recent Le Monde analysis. In the US, the political landscape is even murkier. Trump's focus on domestic issues, like inflation and border security, risks diverting attention from Ukraine, especially as the 2026 midterms loom. Senator Chris Murphy, speaking on NBC on August 17th, warned that the U.S. risks losing leverage if it doesn't present a united front. Russia, meanwhile, is banking on this fatigue, hoping to outlast its opponents in a war of attrition. On the American side, the summit exposed troubling inconsistencies. Trump's rosy portrayal of the talks didn't survive Russia's swift denials. His claim of securing a Putin-Zelensky meeting fell apart, and the lack of concrete outcomes has raised eyebrows. The Wall Street Journal, in an editorial on August 22nd, argued that Trump's approach, big on spectacle, short on substance, may have inadvertently bolstered Putin's position. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, tasked with navigating these talks, is juggling multiple high-stakes dossiers, from Middle East tensions to China's growing influence. This stretched focus, as Foreign Policy noted, limits the U.S.'s ability to press Russia effectively. If domestic political pressures lead to a pullback in U.S. support for Ukraine, it could tilt the balance in Moscow's favor, prolonging the war indefinitely. Russia's tactics extend beyond the battlefield and negotiating table. Moscow's disinformation campaigns are in overdrive, flooding platforms like X with conflicting narratives. One day, posts claim Putin is open to a ceasefire. The next, they insist he's demanding Ukraine's surrender. Bellingcat, a leading investigative group, has tracked these efforts, noting how Russia uses fake news to erode trust in Western media and sow confusion. For example, a viral X post on August 18th falsely claimed that Zelensky had agreed to cede Crimea, a rumor quickly debunked by Ukraine's government. This information war is a deliberate strategy to weaken resolve and divide public opinion. For viewers, it's a reminder to cross-check information with reliable sources like Reuters, BBC, or official government statements.
So what's next for this conflict? The path to peace is fraught with obstacles. Russia's bad faith tactics, making promises it has no intention of keeping, make a quick resolution unlikely. The Royal United Services Institute warns that Moscow could drag out talks for years, all while intensifying military pressure. To counter this, the West must double down on its strategy, ramp up military aid to Ukraine, tighten sanctions on Russia's economy, and maintain diplomatic isolation. The EU's recent pledge of 40 billion euros in additional aid, announced by Ursula von der Leyen on August 19th, is a step in the right direction, but it's not enough. NATO must also clarify its stance on Ukraine's membership, a sticking point that Russia exploits at every turn. Zelensky, in a speech on August 20th, emphasized that security without NATO is no security at all, a sentiment echoed by Baltic leaders in a joint statement to Politico. The human cost of this war can't be overstated. The UN estimates over 30,000 civilian deaths and 15 million displaced since 2022. Ukraine's infrastructure, hospitals, schools, power grids lie in ruins in many regions. Russia, too, is paying a price. Its economy is strained by sanctions, and its military losses are staggering, with estimates of over 600,000 casualties per Ukraine's defense ministry. Yet Putin shows no signs of backing down, betting that time is on his side. For Ukraine, the challenge is to sustain its resistance while navigating a diplomatic minefield. Some analysts, like those at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, suggest that a negotiated settlement might require painful concessions, like temporary pauses in NATO accession talks. But any deal must include enforceable guarantees, something Russia's track record makes hard to trust. Let's zoom out for a moment. This crisis isn't just about Ukraine, it's a test of the global order. Russia's actions challenge the principles of sovereignty and international law. If Moscow can dictate terms to a sovereign nation through force and deception, what's to stop other powers from doing the same? The stakes are high, and the West's response will shape geopolitics for decades. Leaders like Canada's Justin Trudeau and the UK's Keir Starmer have called for a unified approach, with Trudeau pledging additional military aid on August 21 per CBC News. But unity is fragile. Populist movements in Europe and the US, skeptical of prolonged foreign engagements, could erode this resolve, especially if energy prices spike again this winter. Russia knows this and will exploit every opportunity to deepen these divisions.
As we wrap up, let's reflect on what this moment means. The Trump-Putin summit was sold as a chance for peace, but Russia's denials have exposed it as little more than a stage for Putin's gamesmanship. Ukraine remains on the front lines, fighting not just for its survival, but for the principles of freedom and self-determination. The West must hold firm, providing unwavering support through aid, sanctions, and diplomacy. But the road ahead is long, and Russia's disinformation and stalling tactics will test our patience. For all of us watching, staying informed and critical is more important than ever. Check your sources, question narratives, and engage with this issue. It matters. What do you think? Can diplomacy still salvage peace? Or are we headed for a prolonged stalemate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most critical issues of our time. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown. We'll keep cutting through the noise to bring you the clarity you need on this conflict and beyond. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you soon.